So for this simple Keynesian model that we are building, and where we have only two agents, households and firms, we're going to look at each agent in turn. So the first group we're going to look at is households. Now remember, we don't just mean households who are workers and so on, we mean all households, everybody put together. And when we say household income, we don't only mean wages, we mean all the different ways in which people earn money, which becomes their income, right? So if you look at the average household, as I said, what happens is you get your income, you spend some of it, which I'm going to call consumption, and you save the rest. And while individual households have variations, if I focus very simply on income, most households have their income level as their primary determinant of how much they consume. So this is not micro. I'm not asking, are you buying apples, oranges, whatever. I'm just asking, putting it all together, how much are you going to buy? And so part of what Keynes is going to argue is that, well, most households take their income, and on average in an economy, if I look at it as a whole, essentially most households, when they get an extra dollar, some of it goes into spending, some of it goes into saving. All right. So what Keynes argues is that consumption equal to, and now let's take a look at this function. It depends on the income you've got. It also turns out it'll depend on certain other things like taxes and subsidies from the government, which we'll come to later. It can depend on various sort of expectations about the future. It can depend on wealth, on inheritance, worries about inflation, lots of other things. But I'm going to do what we've done in micro before, where I want to focus on one variable, and I'm going to say consumption is a function of income, ceteris paribus, bracketing all that up for now. And if I look at what kind of function it is, here's the first thing I'm going to say. Even when people do not have any income, they do consume something, especially if I look at the economy as a whole, right? What will happen is that people will use like past stocks of savings they've had, they'll kind of borrow, they'll do something. This is sometimes called dis-saving. They'll run down their savings and they'll eat something. So you never have zero consumption, because zero consumption basically means you're dead. That's the only way you have zero consumption. So people, on average, even if you have no income, you will still consume something. Plus, you will then have a fraction of your income as your income goes up. And I'm going to call this, and you're going to see why I'm going to call this that, MPC times Y. And so, as your income goes up, you will consume some. So let's think a little bit about this fraction of your income that you'll consume that I'm calling the MPC. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to define the MPC as the marginal propensity to consume. And here I'm using the idea of marginal that you got introduced to in microeconomics. It essentially is the idea of what do you do with the next unit, with the extra dollar you earn. So whatever your income level is, each additional dollar that you earn, you will spend some portion of it, and that's the fraction that I'm describing here. Right? This MPC has certain properties. So this MPC has certain properties that I'm going to discuss, and it's going to be crucial for the Keynesian theory that we're developing. So the first thing to note is that by definition, savings is equal to income minus consumption. Whatever your income level was, what you didn't consume, you saved. So that means that once I've figured out what consumption is, I automatically know what savings is for a given year, and vice versa. All right? So that's the first point. Second, when your income goes up, you never spend 100% of your increased income. Some of it you spend, some of it you save. All right? So what that means is that for every extra dollar, some of it you consume, and this extra consumption for each extra unit of income that you get, that's what I've been calling the MPC, marginal propensity to consume, and some of it will go into extra savings. All right? Which means the marginal propensity to consume is going to be a number between 0 and 1. It's a positive number because it's the fraction of the extra dollar that you're going to consume. All right? So it's positive. And it can't be more than 1 because I can't spend more than an extra dollar when I get an extra dollar. Right? And it's not going to be 0 because it means that even when my income goes up, I spend nothing extra at all. All right? So the MPC is a number between 0 and 1. And the marginal propensity to save is going to be equal to 1 minus the MPC. Because the marginal propensity to save is the fraction of my income that goes into extra savings. So whatever it is that I've got as the fraction of my income that went into consumption, plus the fraction of my income that went into savings, those two fractions should add up to 1. All right? So here is some things I already know. Savings is Y minus C. Ease of assumption, I'm going to say it's roughly a straight line that I have. There's always going to be some consumption that I have even when my income is 0. And then to that, as my income goes up, there will be a fraction for each extra dollar I earn that gets added to consumption, and that fraction is some fraction between 0 and 1.